love, exciting and new.
Hello, Hannah Waddingham here. Have you seen the fabulous new Sun Princess? World-class entertainment, exceptional dining, and the greatest pizza ever.
It's a love.
Don't miss our Come Aboard sale with up to 40% off and free room upgrades. Visit princess.com or call your travel advisor to book. Princess Cruises. Terms and restrictions apply. Offer ends 2/28/25. Ships at Bermudan and British Registry.
Alive is a very sanitised version of the story, whereas this goes out of its way to a big degree, depict it how it might be. I won't say warts and all, but no, it's like with frostbite and all, isn't it?
That scene, like the plane crashing, was one of the best scenes in any film ever. Like, it was, you felt like you were on the plane. When I watch disaster films, especially plane crash ones, I'm always like, oh, but you know that's not a real plane. But with that, it was just...
Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of Flixwatcher podcast. Today I'm joined by Barney.
Hello, this is Barney from Sonic Boom 6.
And Laila.
Hi everyone, it's Laila from Sonic Boom 6.
And as always, Helen.
Hello, I'm not from anything, maybe Flixwatcher, but I'm here.
And we're going to be talking about the Society of Snow. Thank you as always to the mighty people for the mighty tunes, and thanks to Ben from Rockwood Audio for editing this podcast. Please do remember to head over to Spotify and Apple Podcasts and give us a 5-star glowing rating if you choose. Please do. If you want to join the conversation with us, we are on Twitter at FlixWatcherPod or on Instagram at FlixWatcher.
Hello film fans, welcome to this episode of Flixwatcher podcast. Our guests today are Laila and Barney. Over to you please, Barney, to say hello to our listeners and tell them a little bit more about who you are and what you do, please.
Hello, Flixwatcher listeners. I am Barney from Manchester punk band Sonic Boom 6. We've been about a band together for around 20 years. We've toured the world and elsewhere, as Spinal Tap would say. Hopefully some film fans will recognise that reference. And when we're not rocking stages and dropping the bass on unsuspecting fans, we are often watching films in the van, and I go to the cinema every week and probably watch maybe 3 films a week. So I'm mad about films, and we all talk about films. Films and football and funk are our thing.
The 3 Fs.
Yeah, I didn't know there was 3 Fs before. So is the touring lifestyle as glamorous as people make it out to be?
I mean, what if sitting in the back room of a pub in the kitchen with a sort of a dry chip fat fryer and a table with assorted bags of crisps is glamorous, then definitely join a punk band.
I used to bounce when I was at university. I used to be a bouncer, and
Right.
you had lots of bands coming through, and it was quite funny to see what people wanted in their riders, or just generally. Most of the times it was just, mate, can you get me some water and some like salt and vinegar Walker's crisps? Anything else would cause anguish. But yeah, Laila, who are you? Do you want to add anything to that in terms of Sonic Boom 6?
Barney covered it all. Yeah, we're massive film fans. Film, music, books, it all inspires creativity and brings people together.
And can we listen to Sonic Boom 6 on Spotify?
Yes, you can. We've got, like Barney said, we've been going for ages. We've got albums. We've got a new album that came out on Friday.
Well, it's a new compilation with a couple of new tracks. So, yeah.
So that's Friday the 8th as we record this of March.
No, 1st of March. So it was this Friday, but yeah.
1st of March, yeah. Okay. So guys, yeah, if you listen to this on Spotify, just take a pause, go and find Sonic Boom 6, just download all their songs, listen to them. Well, download them, come back and listen to this, and then go back to that. But just download them so you can, you can listen on the tube or on a plane or in a submarine, wherever you want to listen to them, basically. But we're here to talk about films today. As you said, you guys like films. We're talking the Society of the Snow, which is your choice, Laila. Can you tell us, first of all, why you chose it? And then you have 60 seconds to give us a synopsis.
Yes. So I chose this film because I love disaster films. I'm obsessed with any films where I have to put myself in the situation and go, oh my God, if this happened to me. And also I watched alive when it came out. I mean, to be fair, I don't think I've watched it since. And I'd heard about it, and I wanted to. I love a good disaster movie.
Okay, your 60-second timer starts. The synopsis starts now.
Okay, so it's about a group of people who they're traveling. I'm not sure where they're traveling from and to, but I know that they crash in the Andes.
Uruguay.
Yeah, there you go, Uruguay. So they crash in the middle of nowhere, and they're just surrounded by mountains. And it's a story. Well, I was nearly said the original. There is no original. It's based on a book anyway, I think. But the first time I saw anything about this real life thing that happened was a Hollywood sort of take on it. It was full of hope, but it was a bit gnarly. Whereas this one is just gnarl central. This is what it would actually have been like. And yeah.
Oh, there's your timer. Well, Karen talking about the synopsis all the way through. That's not a problem at all. Barney, had you seen Alive before you seen this?
Yeah. I reckon seen Alive when it come on telly. So what would that be, like 94, 95, like mid-90s? Yeah.
Sure. Mm-hmm. And how does it compare to Society of Snow for you?
It's funny because the contrast between those two films is actually very telling in certain ways, because you don't think that movie making has come that far, but just in terms of the scale of the production and the cinematography and the rawness and the much more explicit and extreme nature of the newer film, which doesn't by today's standards seem particularly more extreme than Alive may have back then. Alive is a very sanitized version of the story, whereas this goes out of its way to a big degree depict it how it might be. I won't say warts and all, but no, it's like with frostbite and all, isn't it?
Oh. What about yourself, Helen?
Yes, I also saw Alive when it came on TV around that time, which was definitely a good few years younger than the intended audience, and fair to say that imprinted itself very firmly on my brain. And even though it's one of those films I've never ever rewatched, I can remember quite a lot about it. So rewatching this, particularly the crash, was almost like I'd actually been in that crash because I'd seen it and watched it. But yeah, it's very Americanized. I mean, Ethan Hawke's in it, so it's extremely Americanized. It's very kind of Hollywoody. So I think to finally have a version on film of the story that reflects the real people a bit more accurately and feels a lot more authentic was definitely well due.
Yeah, I think I've never seen Alive because it was always kind of the main strapline was Uruguayan rugby team get stuck in the Andes, have to eat each other, and I just thought I don't want to watch that film.
That's what attracted me to it. I'm like, wow. Even at 14, I was like, I have to see people. It takes it back to that. One of the things that really stood out to me was would you do it if you had to survive? And that's what I loved about Society of the Snow. Again, it was that realism, because the actors were not American. Like you said, Helen, it wasn't Ethan Hawke. The actors weren't American. And every character, you saw how quickly some people were like, forget it. We've just got to do it. We've just got to do it. Just pretend that it's not, pretend you don't know. We'll be in charge. You just eat it. When the guy trying to feed him, Numa's like, it's wrong. But the guy's like, yeah, but if you don't do it, you're going to die. And it's
yeah, exactly.
How, unless you're in that situation, me sat on my couch with my cup of tea and some grapes, is sitting there going, oh my God, I'd never do that. You couldn't force me to do it. It's different when you're actually in the snow. Half your mates are dead. And it's like...
I thought the opposite. I'd have been like that first.
You would.
He's dead. I would.
You'd be
like that. He's dead. Let's cook him.
No beer. Oh my God, I can't eat my friend. You'd be having an existential...
I'd cry while I was eating him, but I would, if I was that hungry and you were dead, I mean, there wouldn't be that much meat on the bone, but you'd be salt and peppered up on a spit.
Is this which band member you'd eat first? Is this where we've gone into that conversation?
Well, I know who I'd be eating. Yeah, the drummer, because he's the
I knew you
biggest.
were going to say that, Kev.
He'd probably taste the chicken.
Well, first of all, there'd be no cotton.
That's what he eats.
There'd be
Yeah. No, he don't actually. He's vegetarian, so yeah.
Oh, yeah. So I've got a question then. Helen, you know all of us. I know you've only met Barney once or twice. Who would you eat?
Do you know what's worse?
Well,
From the band?
I mean, just to say that, like, I would definitely not have survived the crash. So I think you're probably eating me first. Like, if the crash didn't get me, then the cold would immediately. So I think I'm first up on the menu as maybe a starter. We're joking about it now, but it's...
Oh, yeah. It's real, yeah.
The turmoil that they went through, and, you know, they're in some cases eating their parents or eating their relatives.
Yeah.
And I think it really kind of reflects, you know, the difficulty of doing that. And even the ones who eventually came round to doing it, it would still be like with you. But yeah, I mean, I also like wouldn't have gone 20 minutes without having something to eat. I would just been like, I need to eat something. So yeah, I would have been terrible in this situation.
The story that's told about when they discovered, when they were rescued, when the public found out this is what they had to do. I think we're focusing perhaps a bit too much on the cannibalism bit, but it's still obviously an important part of it. But all the public kind of turned against them. Like, how could you do that? But when you're like, dude, we had no food. We wanted to survive.
72 days.
Like, crazy.
That's what I liked about this one, because from what I can remember in Alive, they get saved. Hurrah! We're alive. Brilliant. We're alive. The name of the film. But with Society of the Snow, I loved how they kept it going a little bit longer. Like, so yeah, they survived, but then you saw that survivor's guilt. You saw that when the guy's in the shower and he loses it, because it dawns on him. That is like deeply traumatic. That is stuff that you never get over.
Stays with a man.
I mean, how would you even get over just the crash and seeing people that you love and people that you respect, admire, you've spent your life with, not surviving in horrific, you know, that scene, like the plane crashing, was one of the best scenes in any film ever. Like, it was, you felt like you were on the plane. Like that, I always wonder, like when I watch disaster films, especially plane crash ones, I'm always like, oh, but you know that's not a real plane. You know that's like just like a thing in a studio and they're doing like that with it. But with that, it was just...
For people listening, Laila just kind of shook her hands up
and
down.
Yeah. Like in Star Trek when they go... Ooh. But that 70s style plane... I mean, you wouldn't want to get on a 70s plane anyway. Never mind that plane. And I just thought that scene, the whole bit actually, it was spectacular. And it's what actually happened.
It was a really dark, visceral plane crash. And one of the most traumatic I can remember seeing. The one at the start of Lost was pretty dark. But yeah, this is terrible.
Seen it. I've not seen Lost.
It's in a pilot episode.
Well, you need to get on that one. Yeah, for the first one, the plane crash, you can rate it on your plane crashes.
Yeah, for someone who likes disaster stuff, maybe don't watch the rest of the series because it turns to nonsense. But the plane crash is quite interesting.
That's what put me off. Everyone's like, yeah, watch the first episode, but not the rest of the series. I'm like, what?
One thing Helen said about, obviously we're talking about surviving there, but in the cold. So in a zombie apocalypse, I reckon I'd have a go. But in just cold, I'd be like, fuck that. I'd be the first one to go. I'm walking around like...
Any extreme weather, Helen knows me well. Any extreme weather. Helen, the last pretty much 3 summers, has had to comfort me because I get too hot. And she actually said, when are you going to buy a fan? And yeah, thank you, Helen. And
when are you going to buy a fan?
I bought one this year.
Maybe this year.
I bought one last year.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So
that's good. So I'm happy now.
Yeah.
Yeah, extreme cold. The fact that actually, my hands get cold at not very cold, and I can't feel anything. So the fact that these guys were walking out, hanging out in the sunshine, obviously it's probably warmer in the sunshine than inside the fuselage of the plane, trying to rewire things. My hands would have not worked for those 70 days and they just wouldn't have like functioned.
It was for me as well, talking about the cold, you have a glimmer of hope. So they find that little radio thing and they're like, oh, yes, 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 yes. And then they have that scene, where they're in the plane and the avalanche or whatever squishes them. And it takes out even more of
more snow.
And there's that bit where the man says that he had to step on his wife. And you just like, I had to pause that bit because I was like, because your hope rises and then that avalanche and then it happened again. And you're just like, I would have given up. Like, I'm with you, Helen. I would have given up as soon as I opened my eyes and I was like, oh my God, like, why? This is too cold. This is awful. It was just, that was brutal.
Is there anything else, guys, want to say before we head to the scores? Obviously, we'll keep on talking about the film as we're giving the scores, but do you want to head over there?
Yeah.
I'm Sam Clements, host of the 90 Minutes or Less Film Festival, another podcast in the Stripped Media family, a podcast that celebrates movies under 90 minutes long. Each episode, I'm joined by a special guest who selects a movie to join our prestigious lineup. Past guests have included fellow Stripped Media family members Martin and Sam from Song by Song, and Kobe from Flixwatcher, and Dave from The Wire Stripped. Search for us now on the app you're currently listening to this podcast, or join us at 90minfilmfest.com.
So welcome to the Flixwatcher scores. All of the scores are out of 5. You can have decimal places if you wish. And we'll start with you, please, Layla, with your recommendability.
I mean, for me, it's a 5 because I love a film that takes me on this journey of going like these highs and extreme lows. So for me, it's 5. Like, as soon as I watched it, I texted everyone and said, you got to watch Society of the Snow. Barney?
For me, it's... as far as me recommending it, probably a 3, but being reasonable, I'd say 4. So it's a 3.5. I enjoyed it, thought it was very well done, but that kind of conventional disaster storytelling isn't my bag that much, so I won't be running out telling anyone else to watch it. It was a big event. I'm glad I've seen it. It was a good film.
Helen?
Yeah, this is just infinitely better than Alive, and I think they've done the story justice without kind of over sensationalizing the cannibalism. That said, there is people that I wouldn't recommend it to. Like, Reese is a bit of a nervous flyer, so I would not recommend that he watches this. So I'm going to give it a 4.5 for recommendability. I think it's a very powerful story, but yeah, if you're a nervous flyer, I don't know whether it's for you.
I'd give it a 4. I've not seen Alive, but I think perhaps we're doing it a bit of a disservice by comparing it too much to that. It's its own film. Juan Antonio Bayona is a great director of disaster films. I don't know if you guys have seen The Impossible. That's a horrible film I'm never going to watch again. Not because it was bad, but just because I just don't want to relive what he put us through in that. And this looked great. The scenery.
The snow.
Yeah, it makes it sound like they're on a holiday spree. But it looked great. There's a lot to talk about in the film that isn't just the cannibalism, the camaraderie, and just, the conversations the guys are kind of going through. You really felt the pain that they were going through at every step of the way. And one thing, I don't know, like I said, I haven't seen Alive, but in Alive, were there female passengers before?
Yeah.
They were. Okay, they just kind of died straight away.
Yeah, they bumped them off quite quickly.
One key difference is that it's way more of an ensemble piece, and it kind of shows how probably cinema has got a bit more sophisticated, because Alive very much becomes this sort of story of Ethan Hawke being a hero and being sort of the blue-eyed white American hero that kind of sort of saves everyone in some ways, and it kind of funnels towards him, whereas this is such an ensemble piece, and you do sort of get to know everyone, and there's the way that sets that up at the beginning is showing how they relate to each other on the rugby team, which was a conceit, and it's kind of a bit naff, I thought, but then it did at least introduce you to the different roles but I thought that was very good, the way they played it very even-handedly and that's a key difference to Alive, whereas Alive becomes this kind of, you basically got a protagonist in the whole thing, whereas in this you just didn't at all. The guys that kind of come through in the end. There could have been any of them, really. It just sort of was through a war of attrition. It wasn't through them singling them out at the beginning and going. And it also killed off main characters, in which it did, which is kind of a Game of Thrones type thing. That's something that's only been maybe in the last 10, 15 years, where TV series and films have been sort of giving you like a bit of sleight of hand as far as who you're following, and then suddenly they're dead.
Well, it's Drew Barrymore, isn't it? Is that a spoiler? Yeah, I'll stop.
Drew Barrymore in E.T.?
No, in E.T. Just
Charlie's Angels.
Yeah, to pick up on what Barney said, I loved Numa's perspective. He was the narrator. He was like the good-looking one. He was the one that you would think was going to save everyone. He was the leader. He was the one that everyone looked to. And then suddenly he's narrating and he's like, I'm dead. And you're like, what? Yeah, the way they did that, it was just...
And that sort of echoed the random finality of death, and how a real story isn't always how.
Yeah.
Sort of draws a line under it. That isn't how the story always goes. It doesn't always have an Ethan Hawke.
Also, just finally, the guy that wouldn't give up, he was so annoying, and he was so, like, a sort of... There was an arrogance to him where when he was telling the other guy, come on, we've got to keep going, we've got to keep going, we've got to keep going. And then they kept going, and then all they saw, they did that massive, massive trek, and all they came to was another mountain. And I actually hated that guy, the guy that was like, come on, we've got to keep going, we've got to keep going. And that's unusual, because that guy would normally be the hero, and he'd be likable, and you would be rooting for him. But in that situation, that guy would be the one where you'd be like, give up now. People are like, we're not going to survive this. So yeah, I loved how you cared about every character. And you didn't care about them as in you liked them all, as in you felt something, whether that was anger or love or whatever. And I really enjoyed that about the film.
For my recommendability, I'm going to give it a 3.8. Definitely watch it, with some caveats to people, and because I know people just don't like films in a foreign language. Subtitles. Repeat viewing score. Laila, let us know if you want breakdowns of how these scores work.
Yeah, what does repeat viewing score mean? As in, would I watch it again?
So there's two, I tend to talk about, and Helen can maybe have a different slant on this. For films, for me, that have a high repeat viewing score are, one, films that you can watch anytime, whenever, multiple times a year maybe, or you watch it once a year since you're year dot. Or the second one is where it's a film that you perhaps won't watch that often, but you definitely need to watch it again, because it's on a second or third rewatch there will be things to pick up which you definitely didn't pick up in the first. Yeah,
I think for this it'd be that. So I like it when I watch film and I love it, and I recommend it to someone and we watch it together, because I've already seen it.
Yeah,
but I like them watching it and them getting the enjoyment, or sort of going, oh, it wasn't that good. Well, I don't like that when they say that, but definitely not going to watch it once a year.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would watch it again. Yeah. I'm kind of gutted I didn't watch it in the cinema, but
So
I think you're on mute.
Workday starting to sound the same?
I think you're on mute.
Find something that sounds better for your career on LinkedIn. With LinkedIn Job Collections, you can browse curated collections by relevant industries and benefits, like flex PTO or hybrid workplaces, so you can find the right job for you. Get started at linkedin.com/jobs. Finding where you fit. LinkedIn knows how.
5, what's that?
Probably 3.
Barney, repeat viewing score.
I think repeat viewing score 2, but I think that you could have a film that's 5 out of 5 and only want to watch it once.
Absolutely,
Funny. Yeah, it's funny. No, it's not. I'm not going to be curling up round the fire like I am watching. Elf, I might have watched 50 times, but I'm not going to tell anyone it's the best film on earth. Do you know what I mean? But what I thought was interesting when you said that about the cinema. But I think we'll do that on the other markings, won't we? On the small screen scores. But it is interesting in that sense. But yeah, I don't think it's someone I'm going to be hurrying to come back to, because it's long and it's arduous and it's pretty straightforward. I thought there was a bit of subtext about the body, because there was so much religious stuff. I did, the body of Christ and all that. The body of Christ. I was thinking that maybe there was kind of a bit of a Catholic sort of imagery and a bit of subtext there. That was the only thing I kind of went, if I watched that again, I'd be looking out for that. But I think it was really subtle. But some of the stuff with the almost ceremonial way that they made the little hors d'oeuvres with the bodies, and it looked like Turkish delight. I thought that was quite. I think that there was some sort of parallels, and the way that the light shone, there was a lot of religious imagery, I thought. So if I was to watch it again, I'd look out for that. But I don't think it's a massively rewatchable film. It's a bit of a strap in and experience this and then kind of go to sleep and stare at the ceiling for a bit.
Helen.
Yeah, so it is quite long. It's nearly 2.5 hours. And as I was watching it, I was like, it's a bit long, taking a little bit of time. I was like, hang on, these people had 72 days there. Like, I shouldn't be moaning about an hour.
You can deal with it.
2.5 hours of watching them struggle because they lived through 72 days of it. That said, I do highly recommend it. It is quite long. It is really sad and just... there's a lot to go through, so I'm probably unlikely to watch it again. So 1.
It's not really something you put on in the background, is it? Like, I love you, man.
No, but the thing is,
it's not a comfort watch.
Sometimes, for me, I need to have those sort of deep emotional experiences with a film where it connects to a bit of you that doesn't just exist in normal life, because I just plod along, and you watch something like that and you watch, real people have been through, the man, when he was talking about...
The man?
There's a man that...
Pronouns.
The one that loses his wife, and he says to the guy, he was like, you know what, this is the worst thing that's ever happened, but I know why I didn't die, and it's to go and love my kids. It's to go and be the best dad.
Was he the one that we saw reuniting with his kids and giving them like a kiss on the head at the end, or was that someone else?
Yeah. Because it's like, if you've survived, you've got a life to live, and it portrayed that amazingly.
Yeah, it was uplifting at the end. Definitely, you didn't leave it I didn't leave it horrified. I left it. It's a story of survival rather than a story of catastrophe. Ultimately.
Yeah. So will I watch this again? I'll definitely watch it live before coming back to this. Not going to say no, but it's not going to be a frequent rewatch. So I'll go 1.5. Layla, small screen score.
So with this one, it's for how we tend to see this is like, if it's a film that you really would have enjoyed watching in the cinema or would have been perfect to watch at the cinema, then it would be a low small screen. If it's one that is fine for watching in Netflix and you had a great time, then it'd be a higher score.
Okay. I'd probably say 3, because I do wish I'd gone to see it at the cinema on the big screen, because the way it's shot and the scenes, the fast scenes would have been amazing to see at the cinema, and also the sound, like when they're crashing, and it's so like sonically, it would have been amazing. But because the story, because you're following each character, and because it really happened and you care about everyone, it was fine. It was really good to watch on a Saturday evening at home. And also I've got a massive telly, so that probably helps.
One thing, they shot this, I think, somewhere in Spain, in mountain range in Spain, but they actually shot it in the mountains.
Some of it was actually filmed where the plane had crashed.
I thought it wasn't. I heard an interview with the director, and they said it was. I thought he said it's shot in the mountain ranges in Spain.
Right. Okay.
I might be wrong on that.
Snow and mountains are snow and mountains.
But it definitely showed, right? It wasn't like a green screen effect at all. At any point, did you think they weren't on the snow somewhere? It didn't look like it was on a studio backlot. It looked like they were always in the snow. And a lot of it was me thinking, how have they just logistically covered up the footprints each time to restart and reshoot again to do that scene again?
I thought that.
Barney, here's your moment to shine with the cinematic angle.
Well, that's the thing, is that it comes to a huge conversation that's being had at the moment, innit? Because it did go straight to streaming. in this country as far as I remember. I remember it being reviewed and everything, and it was like, yeah, it's going to be on Netflix. And then you've got stuff like, I mean, obviously the industry's changing, and that's what a huge amount of this Screenwriters Guild strike has been about, the perpetuity of the rights and how it used to go through from cinema to DVD and then they'd all get residuals. And now if it's going straight to streaming. So it's a very interesting question on this. And then there's also the fact that it's a huge foreign language production. So it ends up straight on streaming. But I would have loved the chance to see this in the cinema for sure, because of the grandeur and the scale of it and the sound design, the cinematography, and the whole thing is just, it's not a film that's made for the small screen. So you've got to wonder how, I mean, I often wonder that when, you know, like horror films go straight to Shudder or whatever, you go, well, that might find its audience on Shudder and that might be a banner thing for such a niche thing, but you wonder as a director, you've put all this time and effort into something and then it gets getaways like that. And on Netflix is not the same thing at all. But it sort of does, it ends up in front of people that you've already decided are going to like it. And it's like, I think this is a really interesting film because it shouldn't really go straight to streaming because just of the size of it. You can see how like something like Uncut Gems, that worked straight to streaming because it's like, it's a small screen film, but this really wasn't. But I'd have to say it worked great on the small screen, as in I watched it and it looked great. And it certainly wasn't anything where I was sat there. But as far as if someone was writing a book about the evolution of films from the cinema to streaming to home media, this is quite an important film in that it's a big foreign language film that was dropped straight on Netflix. And, you know, the discussion of films like Parasite, you know, winning best foreign. There's lots of talk about it all. At the moment, there's changes afoot in terms of foreign language and in terms of straight to digital. And I think this is an important film in that conversation. You know, whether or not it's centre of that conversation, it's certainly part of it. And Saltburn's a big one as well. That did all right at the cinema and then went on streaming and went massive. So it's a small screen film in that sense. But I think with this, it's a shame it never went to the cinema in the UK. I'm sure it did elsewhere in the world.
So what's the score, sorry?
I'll go to a 4 because it was good on the small screen, but it's interesting.
Helen?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you said there, Barney. I think it's a shame that there wasn't the opportunity to release it, and I wonder what the thinking was behind that. I'm just looking that when it was released on Netflix, in its first 11 days, it had 51 million views. So it's like there is an audience for this, and whether they kind of thought, with it being foreign language, no one would go and see it or anything. But that said, it is on Netflix. I enjoyed watching it at home on the TV. So yeah, I'm going to give it a 4 as well.
I'm tying with Laila a bit here where I think it would have been amazing to see this in the cinema. For the vistas, foreign language films particularly work better for me when it's seen at the cinema. So yeah, I'm going to give it a bit lower, 2.5. Engagement score. Laila, let us know if you want us to break down the score again.
Yeah, if you don't mind.
If I am watching this at home and I am playing on my phone, therefore I cannot give it higher than a 3 for engagement. So a super high score means you watched it, you didn't play on your phone, you were super engaged. A lower score, you might have watched a bit, paused it, come back to it the next day, or you're playing on your phone and looking at Wikipedia.
Mine was 5 then. I couldn't do anything after it because I was so moved by it. Like, I couldn't...
We should maybe add another score of the retrospective.
Yeah. Well, you know what? That is good because sometimes I wake up in the morning and I say to my husband, what film did we watch last night? And he goes, I can't remember. But sometimes I wake up in the morning and I'm just I need to get that film out of my head. You know, when it just leaves... I remember the film that did that for me, Precious. Have you seen Precious?
I've not seen it there.
And that, and you know when you don't even know what you're getting yourself into. And I watched it and I was just like, me and my friend for weeks afterwards, we were like, are you still thinking of Precious? And she was like, yeah, I'm still thinking of Precious.
Got a really heavy scene in it, yeah. Very heavy.
Yeah, it's dark. So yeah, 5 for me because it had me, and also if it's got subtitles, I am not on my phone because it's not going to work anyway, so.
Barney?
I thought 4.5. It was slightly long. Not that it should have been long, but it kind of felt like a long film towards the end. And I think that I can't really knock it in that sense, but it kept me interested, but by the end I was like, yeah, I was ready for that to end at that point. Yeah.
Helen.
Yeah, so I'm going to go 4.5 as well. I think obviously knowing the story quite well, having seen Alive and read a lot about what happened, I kind of was like, we'll get to the bit where they're rescued, because they did get rescued eventually. And it took all of my mind not to reach for Wikipedia and find out the little facts and go off in a little rabbit hole with this. So I was really pleased that I didn't do that this time. So 4.5.
Yeah, I'm going to 4.5 as well, because I knew they got rescued. I didn't know how many people. I didn't know how they got rescued. So that kept me going through all the way. And the running time was a bit of a slog. But like I say, compared to 72 days in the freezing cold snow, that's not anything. But it's still I was like, oh, I bet these two guys walking away, nothing's going to happen now, are they? And nothing's going to come of it. And then it did. So it kept me second guessing myself at each step. And in my head, what happened was the plane crashed, and anyone who died in the crash died, and no one else died during the course of it. But of course, then people did actually pass away. So there were those kind of edges in the storyline which I didn't know about. So yeah, 4.5, and that gives us an overall score of man plays in spreadsheets 3.51875. The repeat viewing score let it down. That's where it lets it down, but still a decent score, I think.
Pretty strong.
Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine there's many harrowing films that people want to watch on repeat. So that's
The Exorcist.
Bound. Yeah, that's true. I've a lot.
The film I often talk about is Tyrannosaur.
Yeah, no one's going to watch that.
As a film where that's a one-time view for me, that's fine. Thank you very much. Good night.
I've seen it twice.
Have you?
Yeah, I've seen it but it's one of them where, you sat with, each time I watched it with different people, but yeah, that's just pretty heavy going, yeah.
And guys, do follow us on Twitter if you're listening, because we do put a shout out asking for your opinions, and look out for a tweet saying something similar to, we're reviewing Society of the Snow with Sonic Boom 6 and Laser_K. Have you seen it? Tells your thoughts and a score out of 5 stars from an on-air shout out on Flixwatcher. And we have one from our stalwart, Lee Thomas. Have you got this tweet in front of you, Layla?
Had an immersive experience with this one as I watched most of it sat in the wagon. I'm a HT driver whilst it was Baltic Northwest morning. Oof. Despite knowing the story, I was fully engaged and found it beautifully directed. 4.5 stars, yeah, Lee Thomas. I was going to say I feel you, but I didn't watch it in a wagon and it wasn't freezing cold. So
on your massive TV, you pointed that out.
And I know, on my drinking a cup of tea as well. But you know what? You had an immersive experience, so I salute you for that.
Thanks, Lee.
Laila and Barney, can you tell us where we can find you online? Tell us more about your band, and we'll say goodbye to the listeners.
Yeah, you can find us at sonicboom6.co.uk or facebook.com/sonicboom6 or Instagram at sonicboom6.
And that's a 6 spelt SIX, isn't it?
Yeah, that's all letters, yeah. So it's sonicboomsix.co.uk. Yeah, if you like punk music, or we sort of mix it up with all different styles, a bit of ska, a bit of hip hop, a bit of reggae, a bit of jungle. So if you like music that sort of goes to some different places and there's a bit experimental and stuff, or just a bit different, check us out. Yeah.
Guys, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Bye.
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 Enjoyed this episode of Flixwatcher podcast? Why not leave us a 5-star review on iTunes? You can also follow us at FlixWatcherPod on Twitter, and we're at FlixWatcher on Instagram. Thanks as always to the mighty people for their mighty, mighty tunes, and Rockwood Audio's editing skills. If you're looking to get your podcast edited as sweet as this, get in touch with Rockwood, ROKK Wood Audio. Tell them Flixwatcher sent you.
You just heard a Stripped Media production.